So I'm going to begin with a transmission that came through upon waking this morning. It was very poignant, and this is the perfect place to share it. And then if we want to discuss it, we can. If questions come up for you, we can get into it. It's around universal law. And so a dream I was having this morning stimulated this whole unfolding. And it had to do with the polarities. It began with the polarities. And then there were 4 people in my dream, and each one represented a different quality. And it was totally perfect for equinoxes and solstices. That's the way the 4 people were representing themselves. And I realized when I became lucid that this dream was stimulated from the winter solstice portal. Like there's information coming in through that influx of energy, and that this was representative of this cycle of solstice, equinox, solstice, equinox, solstice, equinox. Summer, spring, winter, or that's not how it goes. Winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, etc. And it's just this constant spiraling through these. It's a pattern, through the pattern. So I began to become engaged with the material coming through and asking questions. So I opened to understand more, like, why am I being shown this? And like, isn't it, how wonderful? Yes. Okay. I know the cycle of the seasons. What's the point? Why am I being shown this? So the next image was of the moon cycles. So I'm like, yes, of course, the moon cycles. Everything is in cycles and circles. And so we see the full moon going into the third quarter moon, or the first quarter moon, and then the new moon. I'm sorry, third quarter, new moon, first quarter, full moon, right? And this is the pattern. And then we see the pattern of, then it was brought to mind, the women's menstrual cycle with the hormones and the uterus, the shedding of the lining, menstruation, and then the building of the hormones, the estrogen, and then ovulation, and then the waning, right? Just like the moon cycles. And then we have, just the growth of life itself, the cycles of nature, birth to death. And you see it everywhere in nature. It's like, okay, yes, this is this grand pattern, this grand continuum that everything on our planet is with, like we live within it. It is our very substance. We cannot escape it, right? It is who we are. And then I saw the same pattern with gender. And at the opposites, at the polar opposites, were the heterosexual woman, the heterosexual man. And then it cycled through, the heterosexual woman cycled to lesbian, cycled to transgender, F to M, cycled to the heterosexual man, cycled to the gay man, cycled to the transsexual man, which is the M to F, into the heterosexual woman, right? And here we see it here too, the whole spectrum. So here's the spectrum, and here's the pattern, and in so many ways, it just kept being shown to me, shown to me, shown to me. So I was like, okay, I clearly am being shown a pattern, and this pattern could be a circle. If you look at the ancient medicine wheels, this is the wisdom of the medicine wheel. It's a map that shows us how to navigate through life. It is helping a mirror to help us understand who we are as living beings on this planet within this greater universe. So the medicine wheel, we have the East and the West being the, the point where the sun is rising and the sun is setting. The sun is on the horizon in both situations, but in one instance it's rising, in one it's setting. And then in the North and the South, you have the peak moment of high noon, where the sun is at its brightest and hottest. And then you have where the sun is invisible to our eyes because it's midnight. It's the middle of the night. The sun is on the other side of the planet. And so the temperature drops, right? So we have this cycle. And yet they seem to be really kind of emphasizing, my guides, my higher self, were emphasizing
the whales.
The equinoxes. So look at the places of balance. In all of these situations we've shown you, look at the place of balance. So the point of balance is never truly a pure balance. It is always an equilibrium heading towards something, becoming something, drawing towards the next step, the next incarnation of itself. So the first quarter moon, even though it looks like the third quarter moon, they both look like half moons. They are not the same moon. One is waxing, one is waning. Spring equinox is not fall equinox. They are not identical. They are not a pure balance. One is heading to winter and one is heading towards summer. More warmth, more cold. And so I'm like, what would that be in the example of gender? It's like, well, the unisex. And the unisex, the old term for unisex that is no longer kosher to use was hermaphrodite. So these are the beings born with both genitalia. And yet still, one of the genders is going to be a little bit more dominant, even in that. So we look at the equilibrium points, and they are always in a state of becoming, moving toward what's next. There is a pulling towards evolution, becoming. And so then we look at the medicine wheel, and we're like, is it truly a circle? Because that's just 2D. So let's flip it on its side, and let's make it third dimensional. And then we have the spiral. And the spiral is moving us towards becoming the next incarnate manifest experience of ourselves. So I'm like, okay, this is all wonderful. I get it. Okay, emphasis on the equinoxes. So why am I being shown this? And at that point, they backed me up and showed me basically a human soul going through birthing into the world, living a full life, reaching that midpoint of transformation in life, where you go basically from the student to the teacher, or the apprentice to the guide, and then into a death, a falling away of the mortal material body. And they're like, what comes next, Maria? If we are going to follow this pattern that we've been showing you, that's just half the journey. What's here? And I'm like, oh, it has to follow the pattern. This is a universal law they're showing me. So if this is birth to death in a mortal capacity, just like the full moon to the new moon, then the mirror opposite, the mirror image of that is going to be the new moon to the full moon. right? So birth, childhood, middle age, elder years, death. Death is going to mirror that. So it's not going to go death into, suddenly birth to death. No, it's going to go death to birth. That means that basically they're saying there is an afterlife. And this afterlife is a mirror image of your mortal life. Or you could say your mortal life is a mirror image of your spiritual life. So let's look at the spiritual life. We come out of a mortal life. We've just died in our mortal life, and we've come out of the mortal life. And now we're in a spiritual form again. We're in our spiritual body again, and we're full, like a full moon. We're just full of life experience. Everything that we've lived through in that life, we now have to integrate. We have to metabolize it all. We have to learn from it, grow from it. And so we're full, just like a gas gauge, right? And now we have to get to empty. A pure form of empty. And that's when we reincarnate, come back into form, empty, like an empty cup, ready to fill up again with a whole new life experience. So we go from full, and at that midpoint, the equinox, at that equinox point, that's the transformation point when we go from being an ancestor to being a pure soul who is an empty vessel for the next life, or a baby spirit. A baby spirit, now available for choosing our next parents, our next family, our next planet, where we're going to incarnate, our next dimension.
So where does bringing with us some of the lessons that we learned?
It's all integrated. Is that what you're asking?
Well, because you're saying you start over new as a baby spirit. And it is that way, especially in these times of forgetting. I believe, or I would like to believe, that we're moving to where we come back to this baby spirit, and yet we have all the knowledge and everything.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Yes, because remember, the circle, when we go into the 3D, it's a spiral. When we go into the full experience of it,
4D is a spiral.
The 4D, it's a spiral. And so every time we die to our mortal life and we come into the integration process of the afterlife, we are spiraling. So where are we spiraling to? We are evolving. We are becoming. Every journey through this pattern, through this circle, is bringing us closer and closer to a fullness that is also a pure emptiness, right? We are full and empty at the same time. And so I asked the question, well, the polarities, this is a very third dimensional perspective of duality, like duality, polarity. Is it the same thing? And when we get into fourth dimensional consciousness and fifth dimensional, does it obviously, like, it shifts? And they're like, yes, it does, because the journeying through this pattern without awareness that you're in it, that's 2D and 3D. You are basically like a boat being pulled by a current, and you are in the current and you are not participating in the direction of the boat or the current itself. You are experiencing the life, the view, whatever, your interactions on the boat. Yet you're not lucid and directing the current or the boat. 4D, fourth dimensional Earth, is what we're waking into now. maybe this is why they showed me this, is we are at that juncture. We're spiraling now into this shift in consciousness. It is a vibratory shift where the whole planet is shifting into a higher vibration. And we've come to a level of purity in our soul's experience, in our soul's understanding of who we are, that now we can be lucid.
Or awake.
On the journey. Lucid and awake on the journey. They're saying that now we can perceive outside of time. So this journey of life, transformation, death, transformation, life, transformation, death, or birth, I should say, birth, transformation, death, transformation, birth, right? This pattern of a soul's journey is now lucid. We can direct the current. We can choose what kind of boat we're in. We can choose our destination. We can literally design every ripple on the water's surface. We can design everything about that journey. What we can't design is what is in universal law, that the journey still exists. And the river bottom, way down there in the depths, is the pure consciousness. It's just pure being consciousness itself that we are a particle of. We are on the surface having these experiences, but we are a particle of this vast source presence. And so we become lucid. We become lucid in life. We become lucid in the afterlife. And now we are awake. And now we are designing, co-creators with the pure source that everything is, co-creators. And at this point, we are being asked to support, we as light workers are being asked to support the world, support humanity in becoming lucid, becoming aware of this journey, becoming aware of our power. So when we shed our skin, just like the snake shedding its skin, it is because we are becoming. So on this spiral, the greater journey of consciousness itself, every time we metabolize the life experience from an incarnation and we integrate it and become pure, that is veils of illusion dropping. We become pure because veils of illusion are dropping away. In our mortal experience, it's our physical body that drops away. So what does that tell us? It tells us that our physical body represents the illusion. The physical matter drops away. But remember, everything is in balance with each other. The solstices, the equinoxes, birth and death, sunrise, sunset. That means that everything is equally valuable. Equally valuable. That's the balance. The value is equal. So when I shed my body, I am shedding the illusion of form. I'm shedding the illusion of form, that I am my body. And then I'm in the spiritual realm and I'm shedding the illusion of who I think I am, right? I'm shedding the illusion of attachment. I'm shedding the illusion of being separate from the one. And that falls away. And then I come back into a body. And I get to have this whole experience over and over again. Each time I'm born, I am closer to my divine nature. Each time I am born, I am closer to self-revelation of I am all is, the one. The fractal, the spiral, this is the journey. Always, always spiraling to source, to oneness. And it's all equally valuable. So with that,
pause.
Integrate. Want to invite you to just breathe and just allow however you feel, whatever images, memories, ideas, energy to move in you. Take some deep breaths. And can you, in this moment, open even more to that interfacing of spirit and form? Your consciousness, I am presence, and your mind-body experience. Can you feel this continuum, this sacred pattern unfolding in you right now? Inhale. Pause at the top of your breath. Exhale. Pause at the bottom of your breath. Inhale. There's the pattern right there. Fullness and emptying. And fullness again. This is the fundamental pattern of life itself. And everything must adhere to it, including disembodied spirits, entities. The diversity of life is all within that spectrum. It all must happen. It is all valuable. Every expression of the one, of source, of the vast consciousness that is everything, every expression is valuable. No matter how hideous, harming, horrible it is to our senses and our hearts, it is still in the pattern. And where there is the most horrible, there will always be the most loving and bright to bring balance. They always manifest together. They cannot come without the other.